Today we are going to discuss the different types of depression you can suffer with. With researching and going over the different types of depression people suffer from, there are 9 typical ones that come up that you might associate with, along with some that I associate with. So the first one is major, the second one is persistent, the third one is manic, which is bipolar depression. The fourth one is depressive psygnosis. The fifth one is prenatal. Number 6 would be premenstrual. Then you have number 7, which is seasonal. Number 8 is situational. And number 9 is atypical. Now for today, I created little slides that we're going to go over that give you a short definition of what they are and give you things that go along with it. I wanted to do this so we could get through all 9 and it wasn't like hours and hours of an episode. But if there is one that after you watch this you associate with more or would like to learn more about, just comment or come find me on Facebook or Instagram and message me and let me know and say, hey, I really like this episode and can you dig deeper into prenatal or seasonal? And I will absolutely do that, and I will do a whole episode just around that one disorder. But for today, I'm going to just do each one and do, like I said, just a little definition, things that go along with it. So let's jump right in. The first one we're going to start with is major depression. Major depression is the most common depression people suffer with. This is the depression that you deal with every day and most of the day. You can still live an amazing life with alongside suffering at the same time. This can apply to anything in your life, but mentally it's harder when you can't control your emotions. Most of the time it lasts weeks or into months. For some people, it's a single episode and they never deal with it again. So a lot of people that have depression or deal with depression are going to be in the major depression group, just because it is the most common one. And this is also, like it says, the one that people get that single episode and then they never deal with it for the rest of their life. But I think out of all the ones that I'm going to go over today, this is going to be the most common one people are going to relate with and are going to realize that this is the one that they're probably suffering from. The next one is persistent depression. Persistent depression is a continuous long-term depression. Lasts for 2 years or more, and then this one is also part of your normal life. Doesn't feel as intense as major depression, but can still cause you issues. It can become less intense for months at a time before getting worse again. You can have episodes of major depression alongside dealing with persistent depression. This is called double depression, which is even more intense. Now, I think with having major depression, it's something that normally will only last a few weeks into months. So when you have continuously long spouts of depression that lasts for 2 years or more, now you're having persistent depression because this is something now that becomes part of your normal life and that you're dealing with. I think this is something that I can associate with, because I have definitely dealt with my own depression for more than 2 years. And it definitely has just become something that is normally a part of my life. When it comes up, I deal with it, I cope with it, and then I move on. So a lot of people, again, might just have the major depression that lasts a few weeks and a month, but you might be in this category of people who have it for longer than 2 years or more, and it's something that just keeps reoccurring in your life, so you have persistent depression. So the next one we're going to talk about is manic depression, which is bipolar disorder. This was actually something that when I read it, I didn't realize that people that have bipolar disorder would be in a grouping of having depression. So this one was a real surprise to me and might be a surprise to you. So manic depression, which is also bipolar disorder, is a condition that causes extreme mood swings that include emotional highs and lows. So there's periods of happiness alternating with periods of depression, and this can last up to 7 days. And then the severe cases can cause the hallucinations and delusions. So the fourth one we're going to talk about is depression psygnosis. This is a subtype of major that occurs when a severe depressive illness included some forms of psygnosis. So when you have this, you lose touch with reality. And just like with manic depression, which is bipolar disorder, you have hallucinations and delusions. So hallucinations are seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, or feeling things that aren't there. And delusions are a closely held belief that's clearly false and doesn't make sense. So if you believe that you're seeing and you're hearing and you're tasting these things, they're clearly false, but to you they make sense, but to other people they won't. So these are delusions. So this brings me into the fourth one, which is prenatal depression, which occurs during pregnancy or within 4 weeks of giving childbirth. So you have prenatal, which is while you're pregnant, and then postpartum is after giving birth. This is due to the hormones changing during pregnancy, and childbirth triggers changes in the brain that leads to mood swings. So it can be because you have the lack of sleep and the lack of support, and you're just physically discomfort, and all this doesn't help. When you are already having depression, you are at an increased risk of developing it, but it can happen to anybody. So I don't want you to think that you have to have depression to get prenatal depression, because that's not true. People who don't ever suffer from depression can also deal with it. It's something that happens and then it eventually goes away. I've heard that a lot of women who go through this, like, they don't want to hold their baby and they don't want to feed their baby and they want nothing to do with the baby. And it's not because you don't love your child. It's because the triggers in the brain that can cause you have mood swings are now causing you to feel like you want nothing to do with the child and all that. But eventually you get over it, and you love your child for who they are and you're so happy, but you just have those brief moments where, like, you don't want to be a mom and you don't want anything to do with your kids. So, which brings us to number 6, which is premenstrual disorder. This is a severe and disabling form of premenstrual syndrome affecting 1.8 to 5.8% of menstruating women. So you experience a level of depression and sadness that gets in the way of your day-to-day functions like school, work, anything that you would do day-to-day. This is getting in the way. And this is because your hormones are changing, which begins just after ovulation and starts to ease up once you get your period. So you can seem down and withdrawal, confused, and don't have the ability to focus. You seem to be zoned out or distracted. The mention of suicidal thoughts, withdrawn from family and friends. You're exhausted, you're bloated, you're in pain. You have anxious behavior like jumpiness or overthinking. You're just very sensitive to criticism or rejection. You're crying all the time. You're binge eating. Sometimes you can stutter or have difficulty remembering words. Talks of leaving home or leaving your partner. Your image of yourself is off. You're acting out of behavior. You have extreme irritation and anger. Spending lots of time in bed, easily overwhelmed, and paranoid. Now, these are things that happen only around your period and when you're ovulating, and start to ease up and go away after you get your period. And then I think the rest of the month you don't experience it until you are menstruating once again. So number 7 is going to be seasonal depression. This is a type of mood disorder associated with seasonal changes. It happens due to the disturbance in your circadian system of the body. So this is during the winter months when obviously it's gloomy and it's cold and the days are dark and you're stuck inside. Something that I don't think people realize is that people who struggle with depression, sunlight is very helpful. If you just go for a walk or you go and you sit out in the sun, getting that sunlight and feeling the warmth can almost help change your mood or shift how you're feeling. So seasonal depression begins in the fall as the days start to get shorter and continue through the winter time. May get worse as the season progresses and can lead to suicidal thoughts. Once spring comes around again, symptoms tend to improve. Changes in your body rhythms in response to the increase in natural sunlight. So I think it's because obviously you can't go outside, you can't do the things that you were able to do before, and with it getting dark and gloomy and it's raining outside and then it starts snowing, you're just locked inside for a long time, and your body needs that natural sunlight just to lighten the mood and make you feel better. A lot of people might not realize that, but it is very good. That's why during the winter times they have those light bulbs you can get that mimic the sunlight, and some people say that if you get those and you sit in front of that, it can help you get through those dark and gloomy months, because it's like getting sunlight that can help you get through. Now, which is going to lead me into number 8, which is situational depression. This is also known as adjustment disorder with depressed mood. This occurs when a person develops certain emotional symptoms that are more extravagant than normal in response to a stressful life situation within 3 months of it occurring. So this is brought on by specific events or situations. These feelings can start to feel out of proportion and interfere with your daily life, last no longer than 6 months after the event. So these happen like when a relationship changes, or you leave work for retirement, you're going away to school, negative financial things happen because like you'll lose your job and now you don't know how you're going to pay for things, or a death of a loved one. There are some risk factors of situational depression that may include considerable stress experience as a child, existing mental health conditions, multiple traumatic events occurring at the same time, biological factors such as a family history of depression. So again, this lasts no longer than 6 months. So it's pretty much something that's brought on that suddenly happens to you, like getting fired from your job or losing a loved one, or you decide to remove yourself from a bad relationship, or somebody breaks up with you and it seems like it's traumatic, but after 6 months or within 6 months, you aren't struggling from it anymore and you are back to normal life. Now, I think in some situations, you can get a situation of depression or start with that, and then it can lead you into major depression or persistent depression, but it's almost something that could really affect you for a long time and then just continually affect you. Which is now going to lead us into the last type of depression, which is atypical depression, which means that your depressed mood can brighten in response to positive events. Particularly challenging because you may not always seem depressed to others or to yourself. Symptoms can be different and vary from person to person. This one I think can be tricky because, like it says, you might not know you're dealing with it, or someone like your friends or family might not know you're dealing with it because your mood is brightening because of positive events, which obviously is good, but the symptoms for this can vary from person to person, and you might not know you're dealing with depression, and you might never know you're dealing with depression. This one seemed a little tricky to be going over and seemed very like a obviously a typical one that happens. So that is the 9 different types. So that is the 9 different types of depression you can be suffering from. Now, I think when people think of depression, they think it's just generally one like area or one type of depression. Like depression is like almost like grouped into like its own thing, and I don't think people realize that there are so many different types of depression that you could be dealing with or associate with. So again, I just kind of briefly went over each one. If there's one that we went over that you would like me to dig deeper in, I can absolutely do that, and I can do a whole episode just on that one. But again, I just kind of wanted to let you guys know that there's more than one type of depression that somebody could be dealing with. So I hope this is educational for you and can help you out. Again, I'm hoping that maybe going through this, someone can say, oh yeah, that makes sense, and I think I associate with that type of depression, because really, like I said, I didn't even realize when researching these that there were so many different types of depression that are out there, and it's just so eye-opening to realize that, again, everybody is suffering from something different, and the way you suffer from depression can be different from how somebody else suffers with it because of where they could be grouped in these 9 different types. So, like always, I'm going to leave you with you are never alone and you don't have to suffer alone, and that I love you.